Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm so glad that you made your way out this morning on a rainy morning down here in the Lower Mainland, and for those of you online, thank you for joining us this morning. We are delighted that Katya Betain is here. She's with Charitas, and she has come to talk to us a little bit about this movement and journey from bricks to branches. How does our ministry expand through the use of our spaces and properties? And so she's going to spend some time with us this morning. I was going to give her a big, long introduction, and she said that she would actually prefer to do that herself. So I want to invite her to come forward and welcome. Let's welcome Katya.
Hello? Oh, yeah. Hello and good morning. Can you in here hear me? Yes, you can. Out there, okay, I got the nod also from Technic. My name is Katya Betain. I've been doing this thing about, let's think about buildings and how they can be partners for churches, for congregations, as opposed to a burden. I've been doing this job for the past 10 years. Sounds funny because I never appeared anywhere in the Lutheran Church. Yes, because I've done this for the United Church. Just this spring I've switched. I'm a member myself of a Lutheran church. Martin Luther in Toronto, in Etobicoke, is my church. And I was saying this earlier. On my way to church, I passed 3 other ELCIC churches. And the reason why I'm going to the church that I go to is because my God speaks German. So the faith thing I do in German. I'm a theologian myself, studied that. I'm not ordained, but in my church, I'm a lay minister, so I take services on a sort of regular basis. And I think that is about it, what I would say about myself at this stage. My role I'm employed by the Eastern Synod, but 50% of my job is financed by Charitas, with the intention that I can serve the other synods, which is you, but also Alberta and Manitoba, so in Saskatchewan. Yes, on that behalf, I'm here. And I was instructed to turn this on only when it's needed, which is now, and we are going now to the next slide, and I'll ask Pastor Eric to do the land acknowledgement.
It's on the land of the First Nation Coquitlam people, and so we acknowledge that we live, work, and worship and play on the traditional unceded territory of the Coquitlam First Nation and the other Coast Salish peoples with whom they share this land. We are grateful for their care of this place and their stewardship of all that is below our feet and above our head and all that surrounds us. And as we move towards the end of one liturgical year, looking forward to the hope of the season of Advent, we move forward in the hope of God's leading as we journey towards a meaningful reconciliation with First Nations people.
Thank you very much. The purpose for this session is, and I'm having some notes, but I'll put this up here. The purpose of this session is to be both practical, reflective, and I think, and I hope, hopeful. But it's to help us reflect on how the building will support your ministry, and so that you can be sustainably faithfully and imaginative together. We'll learn about different approaches that churches are taking already, and then, but also think about, well, what else can we do? Because, as you all know, there is something else we can do in order to make our building even more a partner for our ministry. So I've started to introduce this idea about 6 lenses of faithful stewardship. And now you see why I've asked you up to the front, because we are talking about fine print, but I just want to raise this for these 5 or 6 lenses I've developed that, well, it's not really, so it's just, the idea is to think about when you are making decisions or when you're in an idea brainstorming situation, think about the usage or the questions you're asking yourself through these kinds of lenses. And that is coming to, so when I think about economic sustainability, when you're making decisions, does the decision you're making help you survive and thrive financially? So, and that comes to the example we'll hit on a few times, but if you're thinking about going into a partnership with an organization that wants to use your building, and you must put money on the thought about money, you must put that on the table, because you might not think that, but there is no direct stream from up there to here that flows in terms of finances. You need to generate the finances that you require in order to operate your space with your membership and your building. Yeah? So that's what I mean with economic sustainability. The next thing is, the next aspect, or another aspect to think about, is the social impact. How does your building bless your neighbors? That's something many churches do, but that's one aspect out of different ones. So I'm aware of it, I'm raising it here, but it's one aspect. And then there's the aspect, the issue of organizational capacity. You want to do something in your building, but is this really can this actually be done? Do we have the people, skills, and energy to do whatever we want to do? So again, it is a good idea, really manageable organizationally. And then another thought I bring to the table here is the theological integrity. How does what we are planning to do, how much does this express who we believe God calls us to be? Yeah, so that's again one aspect. It's just one lens, and together of them, they come into what I think how we are to look into what the church building can be. Then the fourth one would be the environmental responsibility. How does what we are planning to do, or how much is what we are currently doing there to reduce our footprint, and how much does it honor creation? Again, this is one aspect, not everything, so we don't have to do everything with that in mind, but it is certainly an important aspect. And then the question and the aspect of reconciliation and justice. How does this, whatever this is, what we currently do or what we are planning to do, what we have done in the past, how much does this respect Indigenous neighbors, and how much does it repair relationships? I think every congregation has blind spots, and these lenses are there to help us identify the blind spots. So this is not a flap on the back. This is more, how can we proactively address issues? And we are now going into the first activity, because I thought, let's not start to go into slump, and I'm not here to just talk to you or at you. We are here because I know all of you have many ideas, you have backgrounds in so much when it comes to your church. For you who are present here, in a moment I'll talk to you who are online, but for you who are present here, can I ask you split into 3 groups, hopefully not from the same congregation, so please so split yourself up if I would ask you to do that. Take a 15-minute session where, your tasks will remain, so it's first reflect for yourself. What story does your building tell you today? Does it feel welcome, tired, vibrant, underused, overused, full of memories, full of conflict? How does the neighborhood interpret it? What do the physical spaces reveal about your ministry priorities? And then I'm still talking about step 1, that you do individually. And then what story do you hope your building tells in 10 years? Yeah? And then the second step, that would be in the 3 small groups. Share 1 phrase that describes your story today, because we gotta shorten this. So each of you will get 1 phrase that summarizes what you are today, and 1 phrase of what summarizes what you want to be in the next 10 years. And so listen to each other intentionally, because the third one would be to bring this together. What threads do you see coming through this? Okay? I'm coming to you online people. After these folks here will go in their groups. For you people in this room, I'll invite you, if you need a coffee break or a bathroom break, take this as you go along. Coffee is there, bathrooms are open. We are all grown-up people. I think we can do this without disturbing others. So it's 9:46. I'm hoping we can gather again at 10 o'clock. And now. Yes, yeah. Hello? So, yes, I'm back. There's the sound. Am I heard? Okay, good. Okay. This will take a bit. And I'm very sorry for the people who are online. Something didn't work out because I had actually designed an activity for the people online, which is going to be the same, which is the steps, very similar steps that you've taken as a group now. The intention is this is something you can do with your congregation. And the link to that activity that I thought I put on the slide, which didn't come through, this is my fault. It's something that you will get access to as well, because you can do this. The intention is to offer you support in your own congregations, if you find this helpful, obviously. And can I ask the three groups, one person from each of the three groups, to share what you have, one thing that you have found meaningful in your conversations, one or two aspects. And can I ask Pastor Eric for the microphone? And Pastor Eric will just select at random someone to speak. Oh, and he is doing an even better job. Just pass the mic to someone and hack it under their chin, and they have to talk then. What did your group speak about? Name two aspects.
We talked about the witness of the building to the community and the way in which each of our buildings do that well and do not do it so well.
Who was not in this group? Or
Who was not involved in the group?
public?
I get the microphone because I took notes. I think a couple of common themes is quite a few in our group felt that the building felt tired. And so then one of us said the hope for the future is that the building would be a welcoming and inclusive space, not only for those who gather on Sunday mornings, but like anybody who needs a place to gather in the community. And that resonated with people around the table. There were lots of nods and like, yes, this is amazing. So that was a common theme.
Yes.
Do you want to say something, anyways?
So we have a third group. Can someone raise their hand and speak what the third group spoke about, please?
Well, it was quite an eclectic discussion because there's so many different approaches being taken by different churches. But I think the big theme that came through was community and building connections and community, being a place of welcome, but being visible as well, so people know you're there, not just people who are currently presently using it. Those connections could be with people who are just hanging around the building because it's a quiet and quiet and a safe place to hang out because it's well lit at night. It could be because you've got programs going on within the church. It could be because of your connections in the community. So I think it's more about community connection, being a hub for the community, being visible.
All right, thank you so much. The next slide, don't worry, the next slide, I'll be speaking about, what my intention is to speak to you about now is examples that I, especially the bishop, has collected to name a few examples of what we have seen or what churches already are doing. And there's Grace Lutheran in Burnaby. They have a Montessori school, supporting families, creating sustainable, but also it's linked to an area, it's creating rental income for the congregation. The same with this church. But as well as King of Life, the intention there is they're using unused classrooms for a childcare. Yeah. And I want to point out, so you have Montessori school and a childcare. When I speak to congregations and they have unused space that is substantial, it's not always, so the first thought is, yeah, childcare. Can I open up your lens a bit more and say, think about daycare. So someone who needs a space during the day. And when you think about daycare, that can be children, but it can also, depending on the building and the needs in the neighborhood, this can also be seniors or disabled people. Yeah, so it's not just necessarily always children. So I don't know if we have anyone from Gloria Dei here. I know they're a little bit far out, but what I found interesting, what they're doing there is they have a music conservatory. So that's 3 rooms are specifically designed that music teachers can hold classes there. And the reason I'm mentioning them here is I'm sort of, well, you have a piano here as well, so anyone could hold, so during the day, can have music classes here. They don't interrupt someone. Well, a different story is trumpet players or others who playing music instruments that are louder. If they're in the neighborhood, you can invite them to practice in your sanctuary if your sanctuary is not used during the day. Yeah, that's sort of, I'm always thinking about how can you use your buildings more when you, as a congregation or other users, are not in the building. Yeah, so, and the sanctuary usually is the most unused space of a church. But what the Gloria Dei people do is they actually mention on their website the different music teachers. And that's what I would call partnership. Because if I want to learn whatever instrument is being taught in their church, I have a place that I know of someone I can call up. Yeah, so all of a sudden the congregation actually advertises someone else's services. Now, if there would have been someone from Gloria Dei here, I would have asked, what are these music teachers or their students, are they participating in anything in the congregation? Yeah, so is this really a partnership? Is this a community? How much is it a community? So, but I thought to use that as an example of what I've seen is happening here, and so sort of I tried to focus on things that are happening here, because what do I know? Someone from Toronto, you know. I like the twang, so that's okay.
I can answer your question a little bit, so at least one of the music teachers is a member of Gloria Dei.
Yeah. And there you have the link. Yes, so, then I wanted to mention in Victoria we have the Lutheran Church, and the interesting bit is they participate in a social enterprise, or did they set this up? But, yeah, so and there the church is the basis for a social enterprise. So you're familiar with what social enterprises are. So you're making money with the product you're selling, but directly flows into the social common good. The church is, and a bishop, correct me, is close to Luther Court, which is a housing development.
It's not a housing development, it's a seniors care home.
Okay, yeah, okay, a care home, yes. And then we have in Langley, Shepherd of the Valley. They redeveloped their land for affordable housing and created Emmanuel's Place. I know from my work that I am involved with the CMHC that a number of Lutheran churches or a number of churches in this area are involved in some discussions, deliberations, in development, so housing development. These are long processes, so I'm familiar with that. Fantastic, because, and that is something I would like to always point out, go to the congregations who have done it before, either 30, 40 years ago, because that was the previous wave, and ask those who have been involved what their experience was, because there's learning to be gained from that. I mean, what these examples share are those 6 lenses. They are economically responsible, socially meaningful, rooted in the congregation's values, environmentally mindful, organizationally realistic, and relationally grounded. Just because of who I am, I read quite a bit about theology, theology books. And so this is actually a self-made quote. This is not a quote from a book. This is 2 articles in one. But church buildings are not simply containers for faith, but participants in the life of faith. They're participants or partners. Yeah? So they are not, but my point is they're not necessarily always a burden. Huh? Please, let's see that we can assume that kind of motivational aspects. They are our partners. We can make decisions about our buildings because we make decisions about how we understand God's presence in the world. Buildings, they shape how we become. They influence relationships. For example, how our neighbors encounter us. So whatever we are doing with our buildings, we are actually doing theology. And I have said we are moving into another activity. This time we are hopefully able to scan capacity and partnerships. What are we currently doing within with our congregation's capacity, but then also because you have come back from your first work, from your first breakout groups and realized, we are getting smaller. We find our buildings are a burden. My saying is, you have partners, and it's through your building, you can create other partnerships. You already have them. Let's see what you already have and where you can create more partnerships. So the next breakout would be another, hopefully 15 minutes. Identify your strengths and assets. What does your congregation offer? You have people, space, relationships, land, parking, community trust, or very specialized skills. Yes, name your limitations or risks, but don't sit on them. So with the limitations, I think when being honest, and you're supposed to be honest here, the volunteer limitations, the aging of the buildings, the uncertainty about the finances, and governance challenges. And then brainstorm possible partners. Who shares our goals? That it tends to be daycare things. So you already potentially have them in your building, you're considering new ones. You might have indigenous partners, arts groups, community kitchens, environmental organizations, health services. So that requires the link to the health services in your area. And then describe a shared mission benefit. Choose one, so then choose 2-3 partnership ideas and see how you can explore them further. And then one next step is, what can you do in the next 30 days in order to explore this further? So what I've listed here is something that you would do if you were by yourself. What you, as 3 groups from very different congregations, are to do now is to each name different ideas for these steps and share them with each other. In our church, we have already a childcare, and this is where I think we can strengthen the childcare, can be one aspect. Or in our church, we are a tired building right now, but someone else says, we are a tired building too, but we have done X and Y in terms of as a partnership. So it's my suggestion here is you each name just one idea. Don't sit on, don't dwell too much about your individual congregation, but name one aspect in these different steps to give pointers so that others can learn from you. The intention is that you would go back to each other and say, so after this, that you'll go back, call each other, or reach out to each other and say, hey, you mentioned you're doing X. Can you tell me more about this? Yeah? So today, we don't have the time to really elaborate on big ideas. It's a matter of sharing of issues, sharing of ideas. It's what I've just mentioned. Is that understood? Then I will ask the people here to go into your group, and in a moment I'll speak to the people online. hello to the people online. I hear that Bishop Kathy or Pastor Eric put a link online, which is a link to this activity for you to take on. The intention is to take this on as your congregation. You obviously can do this by yourself, but the real meaningful outcome will happen you as a community doing these types of activities to further progress in your congregational development. I'll leave you doing this for the next 10 minutes. Please feel free to respond, communicate to us in the chat. We will respond. Just to make sure, we see that people are receiving the chat information, but obviously you will only see chat information, so that means other people contributing, other people who are currently online contributing to each other's conversation. If you are not opening your chat, you will not be present in that. Please open your, we will therefore invite you to open the chat as you're streaming. You will see other people talking to each other, and maybe also to you and to us as we are viewing the conversation. Thank you, everyone, for coming back. Can I ask Pastor Eric to go to random people, the first person you pick at random, to please report on what their group was speaking about?
I think, Lana, do you want to talk about your... Everything is so interesting, and you hear from the other groups too. In our group, the two main things discussed in this limited time was reconciliation that's gone on with the Aboriginal people, and there was some very interesting stories in that regard of how the individual church was doing that. And the other thing, it just slipped my mind. What was the other thing? What was the other thing? We had reconciliation and another thing. Where's the lady that's in our group? She knows the other topic. That was just as important. I'll have to pass. What was the other topic we had? We had... No, that was individual. Anyways, that was very good.
So have a think, yeah? It will come to you. Have a think what the other topic was. Let's move on to another
Yes,
group.
do that.
Yes?
Oh, you did? Okay. All right.
Yes, I took notes. Couple of, we talked a lot about different community partnerships and things like the health region that often is looking for facilities for training. There is a congregation that is doing a Forget-Me-Not Cafe as part of their ministry together with the Alzheimer's Society. And then the Government of Canada has something called New Horizons for Seniors grant, which has helped several of our congregations fund their ministry, do some building improvements, things like that.
Indeed. Yes? Did the other... No?
So we discussed a lot about the difference in the, where the church is and the needs in that environment. So one congregation had lots of immigrants, and then the biggest problem is how to find the resources to connect to someone who can help with certain tasks that the congregation don't have internally, like government stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the most interesting, actually.
Thank you. Yes. Has the other idea popped in your head? Oh, hold on. See, we're getting there.
I think actually you should be the one to tell about the people that came to your church, the Dorothy Ethiopians. That would be better.
A couple Sundays ago, as the service was concluding, my wife Sylvia was officiating, and somebody let her know there were people just outside the church that wanted to come into the church and look at the church. So she went down the aisle, out into the foyer, and here was a group of people from Ethiopia. The priest from the Orthodox Ethiopian Church with his vestments and everything, they came in, and Sylvia marched them right up to the front of the church and said, "We pray for people, Christians throughout the world, and here they come to our doorstep. Please introduce yourselves." And so about 15 of them, all in white and colorful, stood in front of us and introduced themselves as a group of Ethiopian Christians who are looking for an expanded place to worship, and they may worship in our church. Which we already have another congregation in the afternoon, Chinese Methodist, and so it might be hard what time. They said, well, we worship at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it may work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing this. Yes, well, sometimes a potential partnership can actually just be in front of your door. And it's a matter of exploring it as opposed to just showing them the door and sort of showing them outside. No, welcome them in. Let's see what can happen. When congregations engage their buildings, several possibilities emerge. We can share space with social impact partners, and a few of you were already mentioning that now. We can honor relationships with meaningful land acknowledgements and have shared usage agreements. We can build inclusive intergenerational spaces, so that was the different senior programs you're speaking about. This is just one aspect that the federal grant per year helps to start programs. And they can take so many meaningful but very different ways of development. We can reduce our environmental impact by improving energy efficiency and therefore explore long-term sustainability. And for all of you who are discerning it, but the future is not about preserving buildings at any cost. The future is about aligning our spaces with our deepest commitments. Yeah, so it's, sorry, I was sharing that with Bishop Kathy earlier. People come to me when they have issues. They don't come to me when everything is okay. But that means I know a lot of things that can not go well. I'm here to speak with you about all the things that can go well. And there is so much. The potential is there. I invite you to embrace that. And this is why we did the activities that we are doing. We are about to come to the close of our session, but as you've already realized, this is just a starter. And the intention for me is that you actually take what you've learned here and take this into your congregations. That's what I would then call, be that at fellowship after the service. Those of you who are taking service, I invite you to potentially lead a service and actually make it, what does the church building mean for us congregation theologically? So the questions to ask and then discuss further in your congregations, that what story does your building tell us about our mission? And then what story, that's coming back to the first activity we did, what story do we want the building to tell in 10 years? What partnerships might help us? What's the next step we can take? And that's sort of, I mean, so think about, you're thinking about your future. Many people get bogged down in terms of, oh, we don't know where we're going to be in 10, 15, 20 years. Well, what can you do in the next month or 60 days? Just take it one step at a time. Then, which of these 6 lenses that I spoke about earlier, what challenges you the most? Yeah, to brainstorm differently about how you think about your building. And then before you make any decision, think about the other options that are potentially also at the table. What do we need to learn before we make major decisions? So today is not the end of the journey, it's the invitation to continue reflecting and experimenting. And I heard when I listened to what you're talking about at your tables, I heard this a few times. Let's try this out. Let's see where it takes us. We don't have, at that stage, we don't have to let go of something else. We can just try out a group. We can try out something. I have, over the past years, I've produced several blogs, but also I've produced several activities that you can individually do or as a group. All of that is uploaded, what's called under the link of ELCIC resources. You can reach out to me if you have individual specific questions. I'm happy to help wherever I can. But it's a matter of, and I'm putting her now on the spot, but may I say your bishop knows quite a bit about church buildings herself. So let's work so don't just be by yourself, and even especially those that are online. You are not alone. Reach out to your neighbors. Who knows what your neighbors know about what is going on in your neighborhood? Maybe they have just turned down a potential partner who could use your church. So having these kinds of relationships actually strengthens you as well as them. So one thing I want to talk about just briefly, what I do, and that is drawing together what you've been speaking about. We as volunteers have so much to do with our building. I've just this past Thursday I ran a workshop for congregations across the ELCIC on this very topic. How can you do more with your building without having to spend too much of your volunteer time on this? And so I'm I taped the recording, currently composing a 3-4 page summary for others to read, where I'm not putting the recording of that session online, but rather I'm composing a succinct summary of the learnings that people brought into this in the small groups, as well as what we spoke about in the workshop. This will be coming up live, so as the text will come in the next couple of days. It will be hosted also on the website ELCIC resources, the link you'll get access to, so that you can dive into that as well. And to finish our session, I thought we'll close in prayer. Let us pray. God of abundance, you entrust us with buildings and land, with history and hope. Bless every ministry represented here. Let every square foot bear witness to your love. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. And for this session, I'm saying goodbye and wish all God's blessings to you please let's stay in touch, you guys online.
Yeah, Katja, thank you so much. Very helpful to have this kind of conversation around kind of property, buildings, life together, and especially the theology of our buildings, right? And connecting them to our ministry and outreach and the work that we do together. And we know that we're scratching the surface. I think that's a way to say. And I also know that people are in very different places around this conversation, even represented here this morning. So there is great benefit when we come together to be able to both share knowledge and ideas and to be sparked in our work and our ministry. So we're grateful. We're grateful for you here this morning, and then you're going to be here with us kind of for the best part of a week, visiting around with various congregations. We're off to Kelowna a little bit later today, and Vernon as well. So again, thank you so much. I wonder, I know that we're going to go off the live stream, but I wonder if we would have a few minutes just to see if there's any closing questions that people might have. Would you have time for that? Just to see if there's closing questions or comments that people might have to contribute. And to those that are online, we know that it's hard for you to participate because I've heard that some of you haven't been able to put things into the chat. And there was a telephone number, but we'll keep working on our technology and we'll get better and better at this as we go. So, questions or comments that anyone has that they would like to make? And then I'll say that and everybody will be quiet.
Yeah, of course. Katya and I had a chance to talk over Zoom for a little while, and the things that she left me with when we were talking was how important knowing, getting a sense of where God was calling you into God's future, even before you start to think about, okay, shall we get a new building? Shall we add on a senior center? Whatever. So it's the work, and it's hard work sometimes. And I understand in some congregations, it's really hard if you don't have somebody who can lead you through that process in a way that, encourages everybody to get a sense and a hopefulness of what God is calling, whether it's to go forward or whether it's to stay in your building or maybe let it go. So I just wanted to reiterate that although it's hard, that what is our mission? What is God calling us to? I just think it really is important to kind of take the time to do that and see how the Spirit moves within that, maybe what might come next, right? So.
Yeah. Okay. Ever so often, the question comes: oh, should we develop our building? Yes. Should we take it all down? The idea: oh, we take it all down because we are bombarded with the issue of not enough housing, and we can do that. Well, okay. If you have 4 acres, yeah, and that's bare land, fine. But if you have a building, yeah. So if I'm not, so I've seen this here, but so sometimes I talk to churches. They have a building, and I see the building's in very good quality, yeah. So kudos to all the people who have invested in maintaining the building to such good high level, but they come to me and say, we want to develop because we hear that well, is this really your call? Or maybe you can use your building differently and let the housing development do by someone else. So sort of maybe it's not your call to do a housing development, but rather have a community center as you already have it. Because if you decide to go on if you, right now, sorry, I'm pointing to someone, but if you, congregation, decide to do a development, the digger is not going to come until in 4 years. And so the homelessness, or what you want to achieve with the curbing of, is not going to happen tomorrow. But what you have to invest is quite a lot of resources in order to get there. Maybe you want to focus your resources on being in the present right now. Again, every situation is different, yeah? So I'm not speaking to you individually, but more sort of make it your own decision of what you want to do, but be careful of the big steps. Anyone else?
He does have that look.
I shared a story or a reflection with my group that I think might be helpful. I read an article recently about a Lutheran church in Seattle. I think it's called St. John's United Lutheran Church. And again, a small congregation with a big physical plant. They've created a program they call Co-Create. It's a whole separate program apart from their congregational ministry, but it's built around activities that engage the community in their space. So games nights, but also shared workspaces and other ways of drawing the community in, trivia nights, this kind of thing. I think they do something on a regular basis every week, but then on top of that, other opportunities. And the interesting reflection they were sharing is that they have noticed donations to their church increasing because the neighbors are feeling that they have a stake in this space, right? That this is partly their space too, right? They're not showing up for worship, they're not coming to church, but they're feeling connected with the space because of what this congregation has created, and the sense of shared ownership that they've created, right? And so, I mean, to me, it was a fairly inspiring example of how when you give people a sense of ownership, I suppose, or that they have a stake in this place being here in their community, right? How that can actually make a difference. And the plan, I think, is to actually create a whole new separate nonprofit to run this program, right? Which may not even involve church people, right? So that's a pretty radical kind of step for a lot of us to imagine. But now you have created an entity, or you've created something that allows people to see your building as more than just that building on the corner for those church people, right? It's now a resource for the neighborhood. And if you ever have a chance, check out the website for St. John's United Lutheran Church, and you'll read a little bit more about their program. So I just thought I wanted to share that.
Great, good, thank you for that. I think there's actually quite a few examples of that happening even here in Vancouver that are going on with people starting the nonprofit enterprise, and we've talked about that for quite a while. That the reason that you want that separate from your church congregation is sometimes you're eligible for granting with the government to do programming that you couldn't do necessarily through a faith community, and so that is another option. Again, and seeing the ministry holistically. And I think that's part of the call to us, right? To say, what is it that God calls us to? And as you've said, Katja, the partnerships. So we want to keep developing and growing and following God's lead into that. And I guess the other piece that I want to say to you is, you've alluded to this and said this, but there is no one right way. It is discerned uniquely in each case as to what is the best path forward, and that will shift over time. And that's part of who we're called to be, right? To be people who are responsive to the way that the Spirit of God is at work in and amongst us. And so that is why it's not a cookie cutter. It won't work that way. You can't just transplant. You have to do this hard thing of discerning. So, yeah. Did you have anything? No, okay. Well, as we close, there's coffee and snacks, and I want to say a very grateful thanks to Good Shepherd, to Pastor Eric, to Jerry working the tech, to the coffee this morning. We're very grateful for your willingness always to host us, and we're so thankful. So let's have coffee. Let's share some more stories, and blessings to you on the journey.